Hey everybody, Kneecap here, and this is my Holy Pally Healing Guide for 7.1.5/Nighthold. And I'm going to just kind of go through the basics of everything. I'm not going to get too in-depth on here. It's going to be a quick guide to help people out, especially if they're new to healing or haven't healed for a while. So I'll go ahead and I'll start in the talent tree. In the talent tree, you have Bestow Faith, Light's Hammer, and Crusader's Might. Bestow Faith is usually the go-to heal to use here. That's what most people use. In most situations, it'll give you the most extra healing done total. However, in certain situations, the other talents can be useful as well. Depends what you're doing. If you're raiding, Crusader's Might probably isn't going to be the way to go. Unless it's just something you have on farm, then and you're like pushing out some damage at some certain points. And Light's Hammer is, in my opinion, useful in dungeons, but not as useful in a raid environment. In the next tier, a lot of people use Rule of Law here. Rule of Law increases the range of your heals and the reach of Mastery Lightbringer, which is the most important part, by 50% for 10 seconds. Now, I'll get back to this on the last talent tree, but I personally don't use this. Um, it's useful. It only has a 30-second cooldown. It lasts for 10 seconds, so there's only 20-second downtime. So it is very useful. I personally don't use it because I don't like another button that I have to use all the time. So, depending on the fight, I use Cavalier or Unbreakable Spirit. Cavalier, if you just absolutely need mobility, and Unbreakable Spirit is basically, it'll give you an extra, especially in longer fights in Nighthold, it'll give you an extra lay on hands if you use one early. You'll get to use two bubbles, two bobs, and sometimes those come in handy. It's not always handy, and so let's say you like, well, I don't need either of those. Then you just would use Rule of Law because at least that's going to give you something. You're just going to choose a different talent in the last tier than me. In the next tier, I have Fist of Justice, Repentance, and Blinding Light. So in this tier, it's pretty much up to you. Blinding Light is good for dungeons. It's going to do a little bit of damage. I personally just have Repentance just for CCing. That's pretty much the only reason I have that. And Fist of Justice isn't really that useful for Holy Paladins outside of maybe PvP. In the next tier, you have Devotion Aura, Aura of Sacrifice, and Aura of Mercy. They're all pretty cool auras. Devotion Aura, since it's split, the more people that are in it, it's really not that helpful because it's just going to be about 1% less damage, kind of, so it's not that good. Aura of Sacrifice, again, that's not going to help you out in too many things. Aura Mercy is just going to give you static healing, and it's going to be the best for your actual healing. Now, you can use other auras for situations, but in general, Aura Mercy is going to be your best choice. In the next tier, again, you have some good choices in this tier. Divine Purpose is purely RNG. I have terrible RNG, so some people swear by this talent, but personally, I don't use it because I have really bad RNG. It doesn't ever seem to proc at a 15% chance for me. Of course, over a long enough time, of course it would, but for a 5-minute fight, for whatever reason, it'll only proc 10% of the time instead of 15% of the time. I just have really bad luck with it. Some people swear by it, just not me personally. Um, I personally like Holy Avenger. It gives me another cooldown, and it actually syncs really well with your artifact ability, Tears Deliverance. If you have them both on at the same time, you're going to get a lot more Holy Lights out. I like to use Holy Light at that point because it kind of saves mana, and I just kind of spam Holy Lights on people, and they're doing more healing, so I kind of like to use that. Holy Prism is really good in dungeons, and it's not bad in raids either, as long as you can keep using it every time. It will give you obviously more just straight healing, especially if you don't end up needing your Holy Avenger or you use it, but there's no one really to heal. Holy Prism might give you more healing because it is kind of healing the raid. In the next tier, you have Fervent Martyr, Sanctified Wrath, Judgment of Light. Again, you have some pretty good choices here. Fervent Martyr, casting Holy Light or Flashlight on your Beacon of Light target reduces the cost of your next Light of the Martyr by 50%. So once you have your artifact ability for your Light of the Martyr, you'll probably be using that move a little bit more. I personally don't even use it enough. This isn't a bad ability. It's passive, and it just allows you to use your Light of the Martyr as a free heal. So it is a good talent. Again, probably more situational than anything. Sanctified Wrath, that's just going to buff your Avenging Wrath cooldown. So you're using your Avenging Wrath cooldown emergency, this is making it even stronger. So it's a good one to use as well. I personally use Judgment of Light because personally it just gives me something to do during the fight. So I judge the target and I keep it up the whole fight, and I'm getting healing from it constantly. So it actually accounts for quite a bit of my healing. A lot of people don't like to use this talent um, because it is kind of another, for the same reason why I don't like to use Rule of Law and necessarily Holy Prism, but um, so I totally get it. This is just personally what I use. It actually gives me a lot of healing, especially raid healing, which I'm really weak at, especially because of my last tier that I choose. So in the last tier, you have Beacon of Faith, Beacon of Lightbringer, and Beacon of Virtue. A lot of people use Beacon of Virtue just for straight more healing. So apply Beacon of Light to your target and 3 injured allies within 30 yards for 8 seconds. And it only has a 15-second cooldown, so there's only 7 seconds of downtime. Your heals will heal all of them, 40% of the amount healed. Your Flash of Light and Holy Light on the targets will also refund 30% of their mana costs. So it also is a way to conserve a little bit of mana while doing this as well, which is just kind of what your beacons do in general. So that's going, since it's hitting more targets, that's generally going to increase your healing. I personally prefer the other two, and this is just me, just because I like to take responsibility of keeping the tanks up myself. Obviously, in a bigger raid, you're going to have more healers, and so you are going to get help on the tanks, but I like having that. I'm focusing on the tanks. That's kind of what I like to do. That's how I like to heal. So Beacon of Faith would then probably be the second most used one if even if you had my mindset there, and that puts a beacon on a second target. It kind of weakens it a little bit, but that's so you can heal 2 tanks at a time. Now for certain fights that could be really nice, like fights where both tanks are getting hit at all times, like on Guam for example. There's going to be situations where this is just an awesome talent to take because both tanks are getting hit at all times. So if you have both tanks and you're healing them up, that's great. I personally go with Beacon of Lightbringer, and it's not. It's basically just because of the last part of it. So, Master Lightbringer now increases your healing based on the target's proximity to either you or your Beacon of Light target. So, it makes Mastery more valuable. So you don't have to stand near the tank if you don't. A lot of times you're going to be wanting to stand in the melee regardless for your Light of Dawn to get the most effectiveness. But let's say that's just not capable. You're not capable of doing it for a certain fight for whatever reason, or just in general, you need to be running around doing other mechanics as arranged. Your raid needs you to actually be arranged. If you need to be arranged, this is the talent to use, in my opinion, because it makes your mastery worthwhile, and then it also increases the range of your Light of Dawn, so that way you can still hit the melee with it from range. So you wouldn't want to use this if you are standing in the melee and near the tank all the time. It would be fairly pointless. What I found the best way to maximize this talent is to, especially on a stacked fight where the range is stacked up, your mastery is affecting all the range near you, and it's affecting the tanks and some on the melee because they are close to the tanks. So everyone's getting some general use of your mastery. Whereas if you don't have this talent, or even if you do have the talent and you're standing in the melee, anytime you're healing a ranged player, you're not healing them very effectively. So again, it's purely on a by fight basis. You can use any of these talents. Beacon of Virtue is probably going to give you just the most raw healing. Beacon of Faith, great if both tanks are taking constant damage. And Beacon of Lightbringer, I would say, even though I prefer in all cases, I would say Beacon of Lightbringer if you're going to be in the range at all. And then if you aren't using either of these two, then you definitely want to use Rule of Law. So if you're using Beacon of Virtue or Beacon of Faith, you want to use Rule of Law. So that's talents. I kind of went a little bit into that more than I thought I would. As far as your stat priority, obviously intellect's good for you. It's obviously just like everything else. It's going to scale with your gear. Haste is not. Haste is going to be pretty much your worst thing though. You don't really need haste because you're going to be using Holy Shock, Light of Dawn, a bunch of instant cast stuff, Bestow Faith, Light of the Martyr, and you're going to be casting Holy Light and Flash of Light. Flash of Light's already fast, and Holy Light, especially after a Holy Shock crit, which should be nearly all the time because you should, with your number one stat priority, be stacking crit. So I'm at 39% crit. I know people even higher than that, and it's really nice because basically like every single Holy Shock crits, and it's just it makes your whole healing rotation really fluid. Again, haste isn't that needed. I have a little bit more than I would even want, and like no mastery, and that's just because of kind of mixing in with ret gear and holy gear together. Mastery can be useful, like I said, especially if you're maximizing it. If you're maximizing your mastery, so and what that means is you either have the talent, Lightbringer talent in the last tier, and you're standing in the range. That's maximizing your mastery, or you're standing in the melee without that talent even, or you're only healing ranged when Rule of Law is up. So as long as you're maximizing your mastery, mastery can be really potent for a Holy Paladin. And versatility is just going to increase raw healing in general. Basically, versatility is greater than haste. I personally use the idea of crit, mastery versus haste. That's my personal. Some people don't like mastery though because they don't maximize it, and you don't have to maximize it. It's not a requirement. As a paladin, you can do it in a different way. Um, Other than that, hopefully I will get up a video for each boss individually. I haven't got to heal every boss yet in Nighthold, so I'm still kind of like a noob healer in Nighthold. So I will hopefully get up individual boss guides for Holy Pally healing guides for those. But other than that, please thumbs up, sub, comment. Appreciate it very much, and everyone have a good one.